Um, hey everybody, Carmen forgot one thing. There's a little mishap about the title of my speech, what I actually given to Jordan. He asked me what my speech was about, and I gave him a description, and he put that as my title. So the actual title of my speech today is "The One Insight That Made 85% of My Profits After $57 million in ad spend and 42,375 split tests." I actually counted a lot of this stuff, so the numbers should be pretty accurate. Now, last time I talked a lot about travel and stuff like that, and I know that doesn't really apply to all of you, so what I want to do for today is that I want to make sure that my talk is going to apply to 100% of the people here. Whether you're new, whether you're old, you're old in the industry or whatever else, I want to make sure that you get something to take away from all of this. Little background information about me. I used to be a very mediocre AM. I started in 2007, and for a year or two, I was only making, maybe $100 a day. When things aren't lining up, but so during this time, I was making about $500 a day, $600 a day. I was running Amazon Associates. I was doing casual and mainstream dating, and I was doing zip submits for multiple different countries. Now, back then, this is before the days of like Volume and other trackers. I was really trying to do what Charles was talking about before and like really delegate and grow my army and really get more people to help outsource my operations. So this is a flow chart I kind of made up. I wrote up this new ad copy for French adult dating. I had it translated on 1-hour translation. I had my VA take the translation and then put it into a Taiwanese email submit landing page. Now, I did not tell her to do this, but she thought that that was the design of the LP was the right LP. And so taking a look at this, I rotated it to an adult dating offer, because some of those adult dating offer names are kind of confusing if you don't speak the local language. And glancing quickly at the translation, I was like, oh, it's French. I'm going to buy Facebook French traffic and then cloak it. Well, what actually ended up happening is that when you run traffic to a cloaker, the geos don't match up. It went to my cloaked lead impact PPV campaign, and it went into a loop where it went back to my Taiwanese email submit LP, but it's really French adult dating, and it went to the German dating offer, which geo-redirected to another. Essentially, it creates a lot of redirect loops. Now, obviously, the test failed miserably. I mean, I made so many different mistakes in everything. But my background is actually in computer science, so I was really curious that once I realized how many mistakes that I made, how is it possible that I had any conversions? It doesn't seem to make any sense, right? So what I did, I went through the raw click logs. I started analyzing the latencies between different redirects, different countries, and I noticed something kind of interesting. For a very specific set group, the conversion rate for that group was 71% when they were exposed to a very specific redirect loop. Now, the number was not very high, so of course I was like, this is probably just not even significant. I should definitely test it out. So I created another specific test. And what I did was I made sure that this one was completely isolated just for this demographic. Now, I was hoping that I would get an ROI of at least 30 to 50% increase. But actually, the split test got me an increase of 762%. And to put things into perspective, this is the timeline roughly of my affiliate marketing career. My first conversion was in July of 2007. I had a pretty amazing start to my career because the first ad campaign I ever launched was for Obama's book, Dreams of My Father, on Amazon Associates. And I spent 37 cents for one click, one conversion, and I made 67 cents revenue. Now, surprisingly, I couldn't live on 30 cents of profit, so I just kept struggling, made my first $100 a day a year later. 2 years later, I was doing zip submits and made my first $500 a day. And the funnel that I was just talking to you about was, I found it in roughly January of 2011. I was making about $600 a day, very stable. And then after that, I skipped the 4-figure day, and I went straight to a 5-figure day in February of 2011. And then after that, in April of 2011, we're running through like 3 or 4 different CPA networks because there's too much, there's not enough cap. And before the offer died, we were averaging about $24,000 a day profit before everything else. Now, at this point, I had a decision to make because I thought it really only worked with what I was doing. But that's why I took the time to really set up a very specific split test. And I did 12 different verticals that I picked. And I picked 20 different traffic sources, media buys, all this stuff. In total, this is 200 total split tests, and I ran this over 3 weeks to make sure that there's no favoritism for any day of the week or time of day partitioning. So when this test actually finished running, it was probably one of the best days of my life because I had scientifically verified, and the results, I got 240 out of the 240 tests had a 103 to 792% in conversion rate. Now, what I have to remind everybody here is like I did not have a greater than 100% conversion rate. That would be crazy. What it means is that for every single test, it increased the conversion rate, at least to some degree. I mean, this is the same type of significance that you get when you split test if you're going to be putting in your affiliate link in a landing page or not. You're not always going to, it's not always going to do better, but it's always going to help. So the reason I'm saying this is because a lot of you may know that we do a lot of business in the mobile CPI industry. And indeed, that's usually what I try to have the face of our organization to be doing. But what this split test before that I was talking about really allowed us to do is it allowed us to tackle multiple verticals. What you may not know is that we also do other verticals like CPS, rebills, and things like that. And I really believe that were it not for this, I don't think we would be able to have the resources to tackle so many industries and still do really well. I mean, you can always tackle multiple industries, but it's hard to be on top. I would say that, like I said before, I did a lot of looking over our old logs and stuff like that. If I really took a look at it, about 85% of all the profits we ever made were because of this. Because there's no way we could just jump into so many different verticals without that. And I kind of assumed that other high-level people primarily succeeded because of this trick or something similar to it because, I mean, that's all I kind of ever known, and that's like all I trained our team to do. But, you know, after talking with a lot of you guys at the conferences last year, last couple of years, it really seems like that's not really the case. It seems like not many people, at least if they're doing it, they're kind of keeping hush-hush about it. So, guys, it's STM London. You know, there's amazing speakers here. If this is something you guys want to know about, let me know. If not, I can talk about a different topic too. Anybody want to hear about this? Yes? No? All right, let's get started then. Just for my own curiosity, you know, I don't sell products or anything, but who here would like pay good money if I was going to sell like a tip like this? Like $500, $1,000, whatever that means to you, right? Can I see a raise of hands? Okay, interesting. All right. So one last thing before we get started. I've actually been running a split test in the background while this entire event has been going on. And I want to tell you a little bit about the target that I set out to target. Predominantly male audience, usually between 18 to 35. They are very savvy, and they know a lot of the typical marketing techniques. So your flogs, your rules, landing pages, Your video sales letters, they do not generally work, and the main reason is because a lot of them actually work in the digital advertising space. But the one redemptive value of why I would target them is because they're all so hungry for money that they can fall for far more advanced topics. But the way you have to approach these people is you can't just, do the typical things that you'll see all over the place, right? I mean, you can't just randomly show them screenshots of like, oh, how much money did I make? They'll be like, dude, what are you, the $47 an hour work-at-home mom who, why don't I give you a Google AdSense check to help your claims out a little bit? If I told them that, like, oh man, I got this amazing redirect loop that's going to change your life, they'd be like, dude, this is what a redirect loop is. You have too many redirects, this is what happens. Who are you trying to fool here, man? This audience is so savvy that they'd be like, dude, really? 240 out of 240 tests all had a higher conversion rate? What do you expect us to believe? Let me give you some tips. You should say a number like 217 out of 240. You'll still get the same idea across. So I have some good news and I have some bad news at this point. The bad news is the thing I was talking about is actually just the magic bullet I just came up with. And the good news, though, is that when you guys had your hands raised, I counted around the room, about 60% of the room had their hands raised of, I would buy this product. Now, this is probably possibly the most mature and sophisticated market of marketers out here. So if I'm able to use 3 principles to convince you guys to buy something that I just made up, then I think you can take these principles and do some really, really serious work. My first principle, I call it the Synergy 3. First one is molding your audience. Look at everybody here in this room, right? If I just grabbed 600 random people out in Trafalgar Square and I brought them in here to listen to this, how many people probably would have raised their hands? When they started hearing about like lingo that nobody knows what they're talking about, they'd be like, yeah, I'm out of here. But how much does that help when your audience all talks in the same type of language? Molding your audience, I really believe this is the one thing that most affiliates and super affiliates do not do properly, because it means ruthlessly cutting out everyone who is not a perfect match for what you're selling. And right here, we have a lot of different people from different countries and everything else, but all of you are here because you want to make money. And I spoke to that, and that's the first thing. Now, what makes a good audience? You have to hunt for desire. We're not talking about a preference here. We're not talking about, hey, do you want chocolate ice cream or do you want strawberry ice cream? You could go either way. But what I'm talking about is like a desire that gets unhealthy. Like you need to see a specialist because your all-consuming behavior is driving you to that. And the last thing you need to do is to suspend belief. And people are going to blindly trust and believe authority sources. You would think that a grand audience of people like this would be immune to this because we see so many fake things. But you don't really expect a speaker to come up here and randomly sell you stuff. The second principle is water faucet simplicity. And what I'm saying here is people have to believe it's as simple and as accessible as going and finding a water faucet and then turning it on. If I said, hey, the only way you guys can make this kind of money is if you need to hire some genius team, you need to have VC backing, you need to have all these things, you'd be like, it's not really for me. And the last thing is a very important concept that's a lot more prevalent in the internet marketing world than the affiliate marketing world, but you have to sell it as a truly new opportunity. If I was like, hey, I can improve your thing just a little bit, I don't think a lot of people would be interested. Well, maybe, because this is that type of conference. But if I say this is a totally new invention, it's going to change the entire game, I mean, and all you have to do is just make a mistake like I did. Make all these mistakes and you can be making this kind of money. These are the 3 ways, primarily, that are the easiest ways to suspend belief. And when I say suspend belief, I don't mean you have to believe it, like 1 + 1 = 2. You just have to make people be like, maybe it could be possible. They don't have to believe 100%. They just need to suspend belief so then their rational mind gets out of the way, and then their greed takes over, in this case. But it's the same thing for almost any other industry. If you go to somebody who has diabetes or something like that, and you really actually invent something like revolutionary insulin-wise, you don't really need to sell it really that hard. So in conclusion, if you really take the time and carefully refine these 3 elements, like really take your time, only target the right audience, only target the right desire. Know your audience, know their desires so well you can speak to them as a friend. And then just suspend their belief. Maybe it's possible, maybe it's possible. That's all you have to get out of them. And you'll be stacking a lot of money. So thank you all.